Kia ora no. I'm Rachel. Welcome back to my channel where I talk about well-being and activism. And you all have seen from the heading that this week I'm talking about meal planning, which is, I don't know, maybe a little bit nerdy, maybe it's not for everybody, but I want to look at some of the just basics of looking after ourselves on this channel. So sleeping, eating, having some movement in our weeks and things like that. So yeah, today, meal planning. Like I say, it sounds kind of nerdy, but over the years, meal planning is something that really has helped me a lot and was really a bit of a revelation to me when I started doing it. I sort of wanted to say too, starting out that, I do want to talk about how we eat and how we look after our bodies and stuff on this channel, but I don't really want to talk about what you should be eating. I really don't want this channel to be full of shoulds. And this is true for meal planning as well. This video is not telling you that you should be meal planning. It's just, here's some things that have worked for me and they might work for you too. Take it or leave it. I thought I'd just sort of tell it like a bit of a journey really. When I was in my early 20s, I learned to cook as a child and cooked in my home as a teenager and stuff. And so when I first went flatting and stuff, I didn't really use recipe books. I just cooked the meals I knew how to cook, and I really prided myself on being able to just make a meal out of anything that was in the cupboard kind of thing. And that's a good skill to have, but I found over time that was really tiring, and I used to do a lot of just sort of staring at the cupboard being like, oh god, what am I going to cook? And I should say too that I'm somebody who really likes to cook. I do find it relaxing and satisfying and stuff like that. Not everybody feels that way. And if you're somebody who doesn't really enjoy cooking, I think that you can still apply these principles, but maybe make simpler kind of meals. I also want to say too that I'm not one of those kind of people who just see food as fuel. I know that there are some people, especially who do meal prepping and stuff like that, where they'll prep like a week's worth of the same meals, that they're going to eat the same meal every day and stuff. And if that works for you, again, more power to you, but that is so not me. That idea just makes me feel incredibly sad. Like food is for pleasure for me as well as for fuel. I was finding that kind of cooking of just sort of opening the cupboard, like buying groceries, just buying sort of the veggies that are in the proteins or whatever that I was used to buying each week, and then when it came to cooking each night, just kind of looking at the cupboard and being like, oh, what have we got, what can I make, oh, this, maybe that. Really tiring and just using a lot of mental energy. Like I say, I like cooking, but what I hated was the thinking of what to cook part. And so just sort of backing up a little bit to before I even got to the meal planning part, kind of in my mid-20s, this sounds really silly, but I really kind of discovered the wonders of using recipe books. Yeah, I especially got this book, which is so old now. This is probably like 15 or 16 years old. But I got it from Trade Aid. It's the New Internationalist, do some cookbooks. And this is quick and easy vegetarian recipes. And what I found kind of amazing and revelationary about this is that these were seemingly quite simple meals that had like relatively few ingredients and were easy to put together and like they say, quick. But what I really loved about this book in particular, because I think it's about finding a really good recipe book that combines flavors and foods really well, is that these were simple foods put together in ways that the flavors just combined really well, and you knew you had a fairly balanced meal and stuff like that. And then, but what I still found is that I still had a tendency to end up going shopping, like sort of doing a weekly shop, but then not necessarily having what I needed to make different meals and stuff. And so ending up doing a lot of shops throughout the week, sort of being like, oh, what are we going to have for dinner tonight on the way home from work or whatever, or once we're already home, going back out to the supermarket or on the way home. And that just, not only is that extra thinking you have to do that night before you even get home to make food, but it just, yeah, all the thinking when you've already got sort of a exhausted, frayed nervous system. Again, I'm kind of talking to people who I assume are busy or are used to sort of being in a situation of carrying a lot of stuff in your mind and hearts and stuff. And so I found that extra effort of carrying what I needed to think about for my food uh, was an extra burden and sort of took a lot of the pleasure out of cooking and eating. Also having a lot of food go off in the fridge and stuff like that, and feeling, you always, I think, like I say, I'm not gonna talk about like what you should be eating, but for me, I do know that I feel better when I eat more vegetables, and that's not rocket science, I guess, for nutrition. Um, but I would find there's such easy to fall into a pattern of like going and buying a lot of vegetables and then not necessarily using them, and then they go off in the fridge, and that's kind of sad and depressing in itself, and you feel a bit guilty about it. It's it's wasteful, and it also feels yucky emotionally, so it's sort of another burden. Um, and so yeah, at some stage I started menu planning, and again that was sort of in my late 20s and maybe early 30s, and it was really a revelation to me that it just took it just took the mental energy out of that everyday kind of situation. It meant that I could sort of sit down on a Friday night, write down the meals that I plan to eat the next week, and at that time I'd sort of plan about, I think I used to plan a full 7 meals, and then write the ingredients list, and then the next day go to the Saturday markets to buy veggies and do my whole big shop. I really liked that. That worked really well for me, and I would have all these different sort of just little menu plans and lists just stuck on my fridge, just on, we used just recycled paper, sort of whatever was lying around from bills or whatever, on the fridge, kind of getting ratty. Sometimes I might do a whole month's worth, and then that would sort of get ratty and fall off and stuff. And so, yeah, this this is all very low tech. I'm just this is really just a, hey, menu planning helped my brain. It's not really necessarily about here's all the amazingest ways to menu plan. I know that there is a whole planning community out there that you can probably find heaps of cool tips from, but this is just what's worked for me. But what was another real revelation just recently is, instead of having all those ratty little bits of paper and planning every week, I came up with another very, very low tech solution, which you may have heard of, which is a notebook. And what I really like about this system of menu planning is, what I do is I've sort of divided it into seasons, although actually at the moment I've only really got some plans for summer and winter, and I just sort of blend them into the spring and autumn. I aspire to have spring and autumn ones in there eventually as well. And I really, like, over time I really realised that it's really useful to have things divided by season, because different foods are in season at different times, so they're cheaper and more available, and they don't have to travel as far and all that kind of thing, so it's better for the planet. And also you sort of, in summer of course you feel like more fresh food, and in winter you feel more like comforting roasts and soups and stuff like that. So yeah, dividing things seasonally, it has really helped me as well. And so what I do is, like I say, it's divided by season, and I don't know if you'll be able to see that it's really scruffy and crappy really. But what I have here is at the top 3 different meals over 2 pages, so 6 meals in total, and the list of ingredients, and next to each meal what recipe book it came from in the page. Oh, that's the other thing I wanted to say about following recipes. Not only are the flavors well combined and stuff, that I really, really actually appreciated, and I think I sort of alluded to this already, about the lack of mental energy that's taken from a recipe sort of telling you what to do. Even recipes that I've made hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of times, I still pull out the recipe book now and have it in front of me, because it's just it's just one less thing that you have to carry in your mind when you've got a lot going on. And so yeah, like I say, making this as easy as possible for myself, putting the page number next to the recipes, and then yeah, like the ingredients lists. And so this means that, yeah, I'll show you again. So this means that I've got collections of menu plans in here now, and I can add to it if I'm sick of these, or none of these are appealing, or if I'm having a lazy, tired week, I can just be like, all right, this week we're going to have this one again. And it means, I think enough variety, but also enough easy weeks kind of thing. the the reason, like, this is kind of an accident in a way that it's the 6 meals over 2 pages. But the reason I think that that works well is because, like I say, I like doing really big shops where everything's just already in the cupboard. And my partner likes doing more regular, smaller shops, so it just sort of can we can buy just 3 meals, or we can buy 6 meals, depending on what size shop. The thing I was going to say too about menu planning is I've really realized over time, even if I'm doing, even if we are doing several small shops throughout the week, like I say, my partner likes to sort of just do a small shop on her way home from work kind of thing. I have realized how much I really, really prefer to have the ingredients for that night's meal already in the cupboard, or the fridge or whatever, sort of the day before, So even if we're doing small regular shops, those small shops can be for the next night and so on, so that you don't, not that it always works out this way, and oh my god, I don't want to make it seem like we always are on top of things, because even with this simple system, I do still a lot of what's in the cupboard, what am I going to scrap together tonight kind of thing. But my life is a lot easier and more kind of calm and happy and stuff if I have food already in the fridge for the next night's meal, so I can just come and cook it without worrying about whether I'll get to the supermarket or if she'll get to the supermarket or what's going on in the day. Yeah, so yeah, that sort of week on a page works really well. And the final thing I wanted to talk about is what I learned from Bargain Box. When I was a new mum, so when my child was first born, that first year was really, really hard. And so, I thought I'd been tired and burned out in other situations, but this has been really intense. And so I just wanted to make life as easy for myself as I could. And my sister-in-law had been buying Bargain Box, which here in Aotearoa, New Zealand, I think there's sort of systems like this all over the world now, but this Bargain Box is a thing that they deliver to your house every week, a box that has, the food that you will need to make the recipes that are also in the box. So for main meals. I think they do lunchbox ones and all that kind of thing as well, but I just had one that was for main meals. And what I used to do is for the two of us, I used to get one that was for a family of 4, so to serve 4, and I'd just get it for 3 nights of the week, and we'd have leftovers every other night, which worked really well in lots of ways. I stopped using that system once I could kind of get my shit together and think for myself again about what I was going to cook. And I stopped it for a few reasons, partly because of expense. Because they're providing you with a service. It does cost more than what I would normally spend on groceries, probably for that amount of food. It was meat-based meals, and we wanted to go back to more of a vegetarian, vegan diet, plant-based kind of diet. And there was also more packaging that you would have, obviously, than if you just went to the supermarket. So this is in no way an ad for Bargain Box, and there's no partnership or deal or anything with them. But I did learn, like, being somebody who's interested in menu planning and stuff, I did really learn some things from the way that they set up their system that I wanted to share with you. So this is just a folder that I bought from like the warehouse or something for $1 that I put their things in. But what I like about what they do is they have so I've still got the folder of the recipes of the period that I was getting it from, and what's great about these is that, yeah, when I'm having a really tired, lazy week or whatever, I can still go back to these and use them, because again they have an ingredients list, so a shopping list basically on the first page, and then the recipes, and so some things that I learned from this that I really like is, one, again, they're seasonally based, so there's different things for summer and winter and spring and fall. For 2, they are sort of ingredients and instructions or recipe for a whole meal. Like most recipe books that you get, like this one, are divided sort of into main meals and sides and stuff. I really like the thinking that this does for you in terms of, it's telling you in the same kind of set of instructions to make your protein, your veggies, and your rice for a fairly nicely balanced meal in one set of instructions. And I think that saves time and thinking, and it also, they're sort of designed in a way that you use less pots and stuff. Like that was sort of a real revelation to me as well, like kind of how often you can sort of, in a fry pan, fry your protein, set it aside to cool, quickly stir fry the greens, and, then you've got some rice or potato or whatever in another pot, and then you're done, kind of thing. So I think there's some sort of chefing kind of expertise and stuff, or ways of thinking that comes into the design of these. So I found that kind of system really helpful where everything's kind of all in one. The other thing that and planning in ways that, that you're using less dishes is really helpful for time and energy and stuff as well. This is kind of a little thing, but one other little thing that I like is, so you can see in this recipe they've just boiled the broccoli and the peas and stuff together. So there's quite a lot of just, more veggies, but just kind of cooked together in a fast, easy way. And that's something I wanted to say about Bargain Box as well, is that it's planned in a way so that, you use kind of like half a bag of baby spinach for a salad one night and half a bag of baby spinach for the pasta sauce the other night or whatever, So it's planned in a way that you're really getting the most out of the veggies that you've got. And so you're actually eating more vegetables, but you're buying less vegetables. That was the thing that really surprised me as well, that it looked like relatively a small amount of food in the box, less than I would normally get in my grocery shop, but it was, it was coming out as more vegetables in the meals that we were actually eating. So I think that that's really clever planning. And that's something that I haven't, like as much as I know it, I haven't managed to really sit down and work out with my menu plans how to really get that same level of kind of concise use of vegetables, which sounds like it should be an easy task, but it's something that I aspire to do in the future but haven't quite got to yet. So that's something I really liked about this as well. And the other thing that I guess that I sort of learned from this is that, you don't have to be too fancy in terms of, everything having a lot of different flavors or effort or whatever gone into them. I like how there's always pretty much just one part of the meal that has flavor. Like it might be a sauce that has all the vegetables in it, and then just like, a very plainly cooked protein and some roast potatoes or something on the side, you know what I mean? So there'll be kind of one flavor punch to the meal, and then the other things kind of support it, but it's not the same every time. Like cooking out of the same recipe book all the time, I often would sort of have the same kind of thing, and that there'd be like a saucy kind of dal or something, plain rice and then some plain steamed veggies, but that gets very samey if you're doing that all the time. So I like how there's a variety of ways of doing that kind of simple one aspect flavor punch kind of part. So yeah, the thing that I guess that I wanted to finish on about this, aside from I feel like I've learned those lessons from my Bargain Box buying time, but I haven't quite managed to apply them to my own meal planning. And so I know that I sort of started this off as an advice video about why meal planning is so useful to me. But I wanted to kind of throw this out there now and be like, what, can anyone out there help me with this? Because what I would love there to be is something like this, but I don't think it necessarily has to what I would prefer is that it doesn't deliver to your house, that what it just provides is the recipe, the shopping list and the recipes that you could just get online or something. So a service that you could buy where you get your recipes and your shopping list online. This is my wish list, right? That's plant-based, that's family-friendly, that's seasonal and affordable, and sort of fairly well nutritionally balanced, so that I can just take that list and go do the shopping and have that to cook. I feel like I thought about it for a while, like could I make something like that? And I just don't think it's in me to do it. But there must be people out there who have that set of skills and stuff, right? So I'm asking you, is there anybody out there who has those skills and wants to kind of do that project? Because if you do, just please take that idea and run with it and tell me that it's available, because I really want it. And please tell me in the comments below if there's something that would interest you and you want and stuff. So that's a little bit cheeky, sort of not really ending on a piece of advice, but actually a request. But I think the reason that something like that would be really awesome is that I think, you know, like we all hear all the time about how having a more plant-based diet and stuff like that is better for the planet and ourselves and stuff like that. And I think that there are so many people out there who just don't know where to begin. And if that could be a way that would make it really easy for people. And like I say, for people who already want to be eating that way and already are eating that way but could use some mental energy lifted off of them, it could be great for us as well. I definitely want one. So yeah, that's just my little pitch really this week for menu planning and meal planning, and just finding little ways to make life easier for us, because I think, you know, we see all the time about what's healthy for us to eat, and I find that so often I'll start reading something and I'll come to the part that's like, and here's the things that you need to eat to be healthy, and it's most of the time the usual stuff that you already know, right? Like legumes, brassicas, nuts and seeds, and I find that I always glaze over like, oh yeah, I know that, and it's like my brain thinks that because I already know that I'm doing it, and that's not necessarily the case. So that's why I think something like menu and meal planning is a good idea, because it helps us to actually take that knowledge that we might have, or you know, think about what is good for our bodies and what makes us feel good, and actually put it into some concrete action. So yeah, that's why I thought menu and meal planning could be helpful for anybody who hasn't tried it already. And it doesn't have to be fancy, it can literally just be a notebook. I just wanted to say too at the end of this video, just sort of speaking of crowdsourcing and me putting out pleas for things, on my YouTube channel here I've started creating a little playlist just of other YouTube clips that are available that other people have created about well-being and activism, because there's quite a bit out there, but it's just sort of all in different places, and so just trying to pull that together. And so check that out. And also I've only put on there what I've managed to find so far, and I should say too that I haven't watched them all, and so there might be things in there that I don't agree with or whatever, but I just want to be able to have it all in one place and see what is there. But yeah, if you know of anything else that you think should be on that list, please let me know in the comments below, and let's start sort of pulling that together so that we can create this little library of information. Because I think I've said this before, but I'll say it again, you know, I'm not an expert in well-being and activism. I am somebody who just wants to keep it in the forefront of my mind and be having conversations with people about it, and, you know, continuing to be a student. And this is, you know, an exploration really that I want us to share together. So yeah, if you've got any great things you'd like to add, please let me know. And yeah, I'll just leave it there. This is kind of a lighter weight one about just taking care of ourselves. I know the last couple of ones I've done have been a little bit more sort of heavy, and I'll get back into some other juicy things in later videos. But for now, let's just think about what makes us feel good in terms of what we eat, and try to find ways to make it easy to eat those things. Take care. Ka kite anō. Noho ora mai.